June stood at the viewing deck of the transport ship, his eyes fixed on the massive space station ahead. The Galactic Council headquarters looked like a giant metal flower floating in space, with 7 huge petal-shaped sections extending from a central hub. Each petal represented one of the alien civilizations that made up the Council. June's heart beat faster as the ship moved closer. After years of preparation, he was about to become the first human to officially represent Earth to the galactic community. "Ambassador June, we will dock in 10 minutes, said the ship's AI. Please prepare for arrival. June straightened his formal diplomatic uniform and checked his appearance one last time. At 35 years old, he was considered young for such an important mission, but his skills in languages and diplomacy had made him the clear choice. He had spent the last 3 years learning everything possible about the 7 alien species that had made contact with Earth just 5 years ago. The ship docked with a gentle bump. June took a deep breath and walked to the airlock. This was a historic moment. Humans had dreamed of meeting aliens for centuries, and now they were taking their first steps toward joining the galactic community. The airlock doors slid open. June expected some kind of welcome committee, but only one alien waited for him. It was an Arvani, the most advanced species in the Council. The Arvani stood nearly 7 feet tall with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Its 4 eyes blinked at different times, giving its face a constantly shifting appearance. "I am Threll," the Arvani said in perfect English. Its voice came from a small translator device at its neck. "I will be your liaison during your stay at the Council station." June bowed slightly. "I am honored to meet you, Threll. I am June, Ambassador of Earth." Threll did not return the gesture. "Follow me. You have been assigned quarters in the visitors section." June frowned slightly. Visitors section? He had expected to be housed in the diplomatic wing. Still, he followed Threll through the gleaming corridors of the station. The architecture was unlike anything on Earth, with curved walls and ceilings that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. They passed members of other alien species along the way. Some looked almost human, while others were completely different from any life form on Earth. None of them paid much attention to June, which struck him as odd. The arrival of humanity's first ambassador should have been important news. Threll stopped at a door and pressed its hand against a scanner. "These will be your quarters. The council session regarding Earth begins tomorrow at what you would call 9 a.m. I will come to escort you." "Thank you," June said. "I look forward to discussing Earth's application to join the council. I've prepared extensive presentations on our culture, technology, and—" "That will not be necessary," Threll interrupted. "This is not the kind of meeting you seem to expect." Without another word, Threll turned and walked away, leaving June standing confused at his door. The room was comfortable but small and plainly furnished. June sat on the edge of the bed and activated his communication device to send a message back to Earth. Something felt wrong. The cold reception was not what Earth's leaders had expected based on their previous communications with the Council. "Director Park, this is Ambassador June reporting in. I've arrived at the Council station, but something seems off. My reception was cold. They've placed me in visitor quarters, and my liaison mentioned that tomorrow's meeting is not the kind I'm expecting. I don't think this is going to be a standard membership application process." June sent the message, knowing it would take several hours to reach Earth using the alien communication relay. He spent the rest of the day reviewing his notes on Council protocols and alien cultures, trying to understand what might be happening. The next morning, Threll arrived exactly on time. "The Council is ready for you," the Arvani said. They walked through wider corridors now, heading toward the central hub of the station. Other aliens looked at June with expressions he couldn't read. Some seemed curious, others possibly hostile. They finally reached a massive doorway that opened into the grand chamber. The room was enormous, with a circular floor and 7 raised platforms around the edges. On each platform sat 3 aliens of the same species, the representatives of the 7 council races. In the center of the room was a single podium. "You will stand there," Threll said, pointing to the podium. June walked slowly to the center of the room, feeling the eyes of every council member on him. He stood tall, determined to represent humanity with dignity despite his growing unease. An Arvani on the highest platform stood. "This special session of the Galactic Council is now in session. The matter before us today is Earth and its native species, humans, June prepared to speak, but the Arvani continued without acknowledging him. Based on our study of human history and behavior patterns, the Preliminary Assessment Committee has recommended that Earth be classified as a Type C developing world with dangerous tendencies. This classification would place Earth under quarantine protocols until further review, which would occur no sooner than 100 Earth years from now. June felt like the floor had dropped from beneath him. Quarantine? This wasn't a membership application, it was a trial. Excuse me, June said, his voice echoing in the large chamber. There must be some misunderstanding. I'm here to present Earth's application to join the Galactic Council as a member world. The chamber went silent. Then one by one the council members began to make sounds that June's translator interpreted as laughter. The lead Arvani spoke again. Human, there was never any possibility of Earth joining the council at this time. Your species is barely out of its planetary cradle. What made you think you would be offered membership? June's mind raced. The initial contact messages from the council had mentioned discussing Earth's future relationship with the galactic community. Earth's leaders had interpreted this as an invitation to apply for membership. We were invited to discuss our relationship with the galactic community, June said carefully. We believed this meant consideration for membership, perhaps as a junior partner while we developed further. A representative from another species, one that looked like a tall insect with colorful wings, spoke up. The human doesn't understand our standard protocols, High Counselor. Their civilization has no experience with interstellar diplomacy. The Arvani High Counselor nodded. Very well. Let me be clear, Ambassador June. Your species is on trial. We have observed your history, your wars, your treatment of your own planet. Humans show alarming patterns of violence, resource consumption, and unpredictability. The question before this council is not whether you can join us, but whether you should be allowed to develop space travel capabilities at all. June felt cold fear grip his stomach. You're saying you might prevent us from leaving our own solar system? By what right? By the right of the Galactic Peace Accord, said the High Counselor. For 50,000 years, the Council has maintained peace in this sector of the galaxy. When we encounter developing species that show dangerous tendencies, we have a responsibility to protect both them and the rest of the galactic community. Another council member, a being that seemed to be made of living crystal, added, if the council votes to classify Earth as a dangerous world, we will implement containment protocols. Your planet will be monitored and any attempt to develop faster than light travel will be prevented. This is outrageous, June said, fighting to keep his voice steady. You can't judge an entire species based on parts of our history. Humans have made great progress in recent centuries. We have art, music, science, and wars, interrupted the High Counselor. Constant wars, environmental destruction, weapons that could destroy your entire civilization. You've had nuclear weapons for less than 100 years, and you've already used them against yourselves. June took a deep breath. He needed to think clearly. I request time to prepare a proper defense for humanity. If this is truly a trial, we deserve the chance to present our case fully. The council members conferred among themselves, their voices too low for June to hear. Finally, the High Counselor spoke again. We will grant your request. You have 10 Earth days to prepare your defense. You may request data access and communication with your planet. At the end of that time, you will present your case and this council will vote on Earth's classification. June bowed slightly. Thank you. I would also request that Earth be allowed to send additional representatives to assist me. After another brief discussion, the council agreed. You may have 2 additional representatives. They must arrive within 5 Earth days. As the session ended and June was escorted back to his quarters, his mind was already racing, thinking about who should join him. He needed experts who could help convince the council that humanity deserved a chance back in his room. June sent an urgent message to Earth, explaining the dire situation. The response would take hours, but he couldn't wait. He began researching council laws and precedents, looking for anything that might help humanity's case as he worked. A chilling thought occurred to him. What if Earth wasn't the first world to face this kind of trial? What had happened to those other species? June requested access to historical records about previous council decisions on developing worlds. The answer came back quickly. Access denied. Level 7 clearance required. 5 days after the shocking first council meeting, June stood at the docking bay, waiting for the ship from Earth. He had barely slept, spending most of his time researching council laws and trying to gain access to restricted information. His requests were met with polite refusals or simply ignored. The more he pushed, the more convinced he became that something was very wrong with this trial. The airlock doors opened, and 2 humans stepped through. June felt relief wash over him at the sight of familiar faces. "Han Minji!" "I've never been so glad to see anyone in my life," he said, stepping forward to greet them. Han, a tall man with a serious face, had been Earth's top military strategist for 15 years. At 52, his hair was starting to gray, but his eyes were sharp and missed nothing. Minji was younger, only 38, but already famous as a brilliant attorney who specialized in international human rights law. "It's that bad?" Minji asked, studying June's tired face. June nodded. "Worse than I could explain in messages. They're not just judging us. They've already decided we're dangerous. This trial feels like a formality. Then we'll change their minds," Han said simply, his voice calm and confident. They walked through the station to June's quarters, which had been expanded to accommodate all 3 of them. Once inside with the door closed, June explained everything in detail. "The Council claims they're protecting the galaxy from dangerous species," June said. "But I've been trying to find records of other species they've put on trial. Every time I request that information, I'm blocked." Han frowned. "That's suspicious. If this is standard procedure, why hide it?" "Exactly," said June. "And there's something else. The Arvani clearly lead the Council, but I've noticed tensions between them and some of the other species." Minji, who had been taking notes, looked up. "We need to use that. In any political system, there are always cracks we can exploit." They spent the next 5 days preparing their defense. Han analyzed the military and strategic aspects of human history, looking for ways to present humanity's conflicts in context. Minji focused on human rights progress and international cooperation. June continued his efforts to learn more about previous trials and council politics. The day before the trial resumed, June received a strange message on his communication device. It contained only a location and a time. Maintenance Section 7B, 0200 hours. No sender was identified. It could be a trap. Han warned when June showed them the message. "Or it could be someone trying to help us," Minji countered. "I have to go," June decided. "We need any information we can get." That night, while Han and Minji continued working on their defense, June slipped out of their quarters and made his way through the quiet corridors of the station. Maintenance Section 7B was in a remote area, far from the main living and working areas. The corridors here were narrower and less polished than the public areas of the station. June checked the time. 01:58 hours. He was almost there. As he turned a corner, he saw a figure waiting in the shadows. It wasn't Arvani, too small. As June approached, the figure stepped forward, and he was surprised to see a human. "Ambassador June," the human said quietly. "I'm Day. I've been studying on the station for the past year as part of a cultural exchange program." June stared in surprise. "There are other humans on the station? Why wasn't I told?" "There are only 3 of us, all academics. We were told to stay away from the diplomatic proceedings, but I couldn't just sit back and watch this happen." "Watch what happened?" June asked. "The same thing that's happened 6 times before," Day said grimly. "Come with me." Day led June to a small room filled with maintenance equipment. Once inside, Day locked the door and activated a small device. "This will block any surveillance," they explained. "We don't have much time." "What did you mean, 6 times before?" June asked. 6 other species have been put on trial by the Council in the last 200 years, Day said. All 6 were found guilty of being dangerous and placed under Arvani protection. Protection? What does that mean? It means their home planets are now controlled by Arvani advisors. They're allowed to develop, but only in ways the Arvani approve. They can never develop independent space travel. They're essentially client species working for Arvani interests. June felt cold. "How do you know this?" "I've made friends here, including one who doesn't agree with Arvani policies." Day handed June a small data device. "This contains restricted historical records that were smuggled out of the Council archives. You need to see what you're really up against." Back in their quarters, June, Han, and Minji reviewed the stolen data. It painted a disturbing picture. The Arvani had been systematically identifying and subjugating species they saw as potential rivals, all under the guise of protecting galactic peace. "This changes everything," Han said. This isn't about whether humans are dangerous. It's about whether we might one day challenge Arvani power. Look at the species they've targeted, Minji pointed out. All of them were advancing quickly technologically. All showed high adaptability. Just like humans, June said quietly. The next morning they entered the grand chamber with new purpose. The full council was present, and the room was now filled with observers from various species. The High Counselor spoke first. This session will hear the defense of humanity against the charge of being a dangerous species, with containment recommended. Ambassador June, you may proceed. June stepped forward. High Counselor, esteemed council members, I first want to introduce my colleagues. Han, a strategic analyst, and Minji, a legal expert in human rights. The High Counselor nodded impatiently. Proceed with your defense. Before we begin, June said, we request access to the complete records of previous species trials conducted by this council. The chamber went completely silent. The High Counselor's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Those records are classified for security reasons. Your request is denied. May I ask why? June pressed. If we are being judged by the same standards as other species, surely we have the right to know how those standards have been applied in the past. You are not here to question council procedures, the High Counselor said coldly. Present your defense or forfeit your time. June exchanged glances with Han and Minji. They had expected this response. Very well, June said. We will proceed. Minji stepped forward first. Honorable Council, humanity has indeed had a violent history. We do not deny this. But what defines us is not our capacity for violence, but our constant struggle to overcome it. She presented evidence of human progress in peace, cooperation, and human rights. 200 years ago, slavery was common on Earth. Now it is universally condemned. 100 years ago, women were denied basic rights in many societies. Now gender equality is recognized as essential. 50 years ago, international cooperation was limited. Today, global institutions work to solve problems that affect all humans. Han spoke next, addressing humanity's wars. Yes, we have fought. But each conflict has led to new efforts to prevent future wars. After our most devastating global conflicts, we created new institutions and treaties specifically to maintain peace. Our history is not a straight line of progress, but the trend is clear. Throughout their presentations, June watched the council members. Most Arvani seemed unmoved, but he noticed that representatives from some other species were paying close attention, particularly the crystalline beings and a species that looked like tall, slender humanoids with silver skin. When Han and Minji finished, June took the central position again. Council members, my colleagues have shown you humanity's progress and potential. Now I want to address the real question at hand. June paused, knowing his next words would be dangerous but necessary. This trial is not really about whether humans are dangerous. It's about whether we might one day challenge the current balance of power in the galaxy. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. The High Counselor's face darkened. You are overstepping, Ambassador. I am speaking the truth, June replied firmly. We've analyzed the patterns of species that have been put on trial by this council. All shared certain traits: rapid technological advancement, cultural adaptability, and potential for expansion. These are not the traits of dangerous species. They are the traits of potential rivals. The High Counselor stood abruptly. This session is suspended for council deliberation. All non-council members will leave the chamber immediately. As they were escorted out, Minji whispered, That was bold. Too bold? June wondered. Han shook his head. Bold enough to make some of them think. Did you see the reactions from the non-Arvani council members? Not all of them are comfortable with what's happening. Back in their quarters, they waited anxiously. Hours passed with no word from the council. Finally, their door chimed, and Threll entered without waiting for permission. The council will reconvene tomorrow, the Arvani announced. However, there has been a development. A representative from the Talon species wishes to speak with you privately. Threll looked displeased about this. This is unusual, but the council's procedures allow for it. The meeting will take place in 1 hour in consultation room 4. After Threll left, the 3 humans looked at each other in surprise. The Talons were one of the council species, tall, silver-skinned humanoids known for their advanced biotechnology. This could be an opportunity, Minji said, or a trap. The next morning, June, Han, and Minji were escorted to the grand chamber by a squad of 4 Arvani security officers, rather than just Threll. The message was clear. They were now considered potential troublemakers. When they entered the chamber, they immediately noticed two changes. First, there were more observers from various species than before. Word of June's bold challenge had spread through the station. Second, Threll now stood at a podium opposite theirs. The Arvani was to be their prosecutor. This session will address serious allegations made by the Earth representatives, the High Counselor announced. But first, we must address a security breach. A human named Day has stolen classified council records and passed them to Ambassador June. Images appeared in the air above the chamber floor, showing Day meeting with June in the maintenance section. This action violates multiple council laws, the High Counselor continued. It also demonstrates the human tendency to disregard rules and authority when it suits them, precisely the dangerous trait that concerns us. June stepped forward. With respect, High Counselor, seeking the truth is not a crime. We asked for access to records of previous trials and were denied. Why is the Council so determined to hide this information? Threll spoke before the High Counselor could reply. The human deliberately twists the facts. The records are classified to protect the security of all Council worlds. By seeking unauthorized access, the humans have proven they cannot be trusted with sensitive information. Or perhaps, Minji countered, we've simply proven that humans will not accept judgment without understanding the standards by which we're being judged. Murmurs spread through the chamber. June noticed that the observers seemed split, with some nodding in agreement with Minji's point. The High Counselor raised a hand for silence. We will now continue with the formal proceedings. Prosecutor Threll will present the case against humanity. Threll activated a display that filled the air with images from human history. Wars, environmental destruction, nuclear explosions, riots. Humans are unique in the speed with which they develop weapons, Threll said. From simple spears to nuclear weapons in less than 10,000 years, a pace that alarms our behavioral scientists. The display shifted to show graphs and data. Humans have driven thousands of species on their own planet to extinction. They have altered their climate through reckless industrialization. Even when they recognized the damage they were causing, they continued these behaviors for decades. Han whispered to June. Notice how they're only showing the negative. Nothing about conservation efforts, renewable energy, or species preservation. June nodded. The presentation was clearly designed to paint humans in the worst possible light. Threll continued for almost an hour, methodically presenting evidence of human violence, environmental damage, and instability. Most concerning, the Arvani concluded, is the human capacity for deception. They create elaborate justifications for their actions, often cloaking aggression in the language of defense or progress. When Threll finished, the High Counselor turned to the Earth team. You may respond to these allegations. June looked at Han and Minji, who nodded. They had prepared for this. Council members, June began. Prosecutor Threll has shown you one side of human history. Allow us to show you another. June activated their own display, showing human achievements in art, science, medicine, and cooperation. For every war in our history, there have been longer periods of peace and rebuilding. For every environmental mistake, there have been conservation efforts and technological solutions. Han took over, addressing the military concerns directly. Yes, humans have fought wars, but look at the trend. He displayed a graph showing how the percentage of humans dying in conflicts had steadily decreased over centuries. Despite our capacity for violence, we have continuously developed stronger rules and institutions to prevent it. Minji spoke next about human adaptability. What the prosecutor calls dangerous unpredictability, we call our greatest strength. Humans adapt. We learn from our mistakes. We change our societies when we recognize problems. Throughout their presentation, June watched the council members carefully. The Arvani remained impassive, but some of the other species showed interest. The crystalline beings, in particular, seemed to be conferring among themselves. As their defense continued, something unexpected happened. The door to the chamber opened and another human entered, escorted by two Talon guards. It was Day. Whispers rippled through the chamber. The High Counselor looked displeased. What is the meaning of this interruption? One of the Talon council members stood. High Counselor, I have interviewed this human about the security breach. I believe the council should hear their testimony. The High Counselor's four eyes blinked rapidly in what June had come to recognize as a sign of irritation. This is highly irregular. But within council rules, the Talon member, who June now recognized as Key, replied calmly, "Any council member may request testimony relevant to ongoing proceedings." After a tense moment, the High Counselor nodded stiffly. "The human may speak briefly." Day stepped forward, looking nervous but determined. "Honorable Council, I am a xenoanthropologist. I came to the council station to study interspecies cultural exchange. During my research, I discovered disturbing patterns in how the council treats developing species." Threll moved to interrupt, but Kai raised a hand. "Let them speak." "We agreed to hear their testimony," Day continued. "The records I accessed show that 6 species before humans have been put on trial as dangerous. All 6 now exist as client states to the Arvani, their development strictly controlled." "That is for their own protection and the safety of the galaxy," Threll interjected. "Is it?" Day challenged. "Or is it because all 6 showed traits that might have eventually challenged Arvani dominance? They were adaptable, innovative, and expanding quickly, just like humans." The chamber erupted in discussion. The High Counselor called repeatedly for order, but the other council members were now openly debating among themselves. June exchanged glances with Han and Minji. This was exactly the kind of crack in council unity they had hoped to find. Finally, a member of the crystalline species stood. When they spoke, their voice sounded like chiming bells. "I move that this session be adjourned for a full council review of the classified records in question. If we are to judge humanity fairly, we must consider whether our own processes have been fair." The High Counselor looked as if they wanted to object, but several other council members were already signaling agreement. "Very well," the Arvani said coldly. "This session is adjourned until tomorrow. The council will review the relevant records in private session." As they left the chamber, June felt a mix of hope and anxiety. They had created division within the council, but the Arvani were powerful and would not give up easily. Back in their quarters, they were surprised when both Day and Kai joined them, along with 2 other non-Arvani council members. One of the crystalline beings and a member of a species that looked like a tall, feathered humanoid. "We don't have much time," Kai said. "The Arvani are already working to regain control of the situation." "What happens now?" June asked. The crystalline being, who introduced themselves as Lear, chimed softly. "For centuries, the Arvani have dominated the council through manipulation and secrecy. What you've done is force those methods into the open. But they'll fight back," warned the feathered being, who called himself Vren. "The Arvani don't surrender power willingly." "Why are you helping us?" Han asked bluntly. "What do you gain from challenging the Arvani?" Kai's silver face rippled. "The Arvani system has stifled innovation and natural development throughout the galaxy. They claim to protect peace, but what they really protect is their own supremacy." "My people were one of the first to join the council," Lear added, crystal facets catching the light as they spoke. "We believed in the ideal of species working together, learning from each other. But under Arvani leadership, the council has become about control, not cooperation." Day, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "I've studied the controlled species. They're stagnating. The Arvani only allow them to develop in ways that don't threaten Arvani power." "What can we do?" Minji asked. "Continue as you have begun," Vren said, rustling his golden feathers. "Challenge their narrative openly. Force them to defend their system rather than just attacking humanity. And know that you now have allies on the council," Key added. "Not enough to win a vote yet, but enough to keep the debate going." After their visitors left, the humans discussed their strategy for the next day. "We need to shift from defending humanity to questioning the entire trial process," Minji suggested. Han nodded. "Make them justify their system instead of making us justify our existence. And we need to appeal directly to the non-Arvani council members," June added. "Show them that a galaxy with free, diverse species is better than one dominated by a single power." As they talked, a message arrived on their communication device. It was from Earth, marked urgent. The message contained video of massive protests in cities around the world. Humans had learned about the trial and were outraged at the idea that an alien council might restrict their future. "This complicates things," Han said grimly. "The Arvani will use this as evidence that humans are unstable and prone to civil unrest." It took nearly an hour for order to be restored in the Grand Chamber. When the shouting finally died down, the High Counselor announced an emergency recess. The council members withdrew to their private chamber for what June could only assume was an intense debate. June, Han, and Minji were escorted back to their quarters, now guarded by 4 Arvani security officers. The message was clear. They were effectively under house arrest. "We pushed them too far," Han said once they were alone. "Or exactly far enough," Minji countered. "Look what happened in there. The council is fracturing along lines that probably existed for centuries. We just brought the conflict to the surface." June paced the room, thinking. The question is, what happens now? The Arvani won't give up control easily, and they still have the most power on the council. They spent the rest of the day in their quarters, discussing strategies and waiting for news. Their communication device had been disabled. They could no longer contact Earth or receive messages. Late that night, their door slid open. June expected more Arvani guards, but instead it was Key and Day. "Quickly," Key said. "We don't have much time. The station is in chaos. The non-Arvani council members have formed a coalition demanding reforms, but the Arvani are threatening to withdraw from the council entirely." "Would that be so bad?" Han asked. Key's silver face showed an expression June had come to recognize as grim. "The Arvani control most of the council's military forces. If they leave, they may decide to enforce their will through other means." "You mean war," June said quietly. "It's a possibility we can't ignore," Key admitted. "But there's another option. The coalition is proposing a special joint session. All council members and representatives from Earth together in one room, with full transparency. No more secret deliberations, no more hidden agendas." "The Arvani will never agree to that," Minji said. "They might," Day interjected, "if the alternative is worse. The other species have begun speaking directly to their home worlds about Arvani control. Public opinion is turning against them." Key nodded. "The Arvani value their reputation as benevolent leaders. That image is now at risk. They may agree to the joint session rather than face open rebellion." "What do you need from us?" June asked. "Prepare your final argument," Kai said. "Make it compelling. Make it something that speaks not just to the Council, but to all the peoples of the galaxy. This may be humanity's one chance to change the course of galactic history." After Kai and Day left, the 3 humans worked through the night, crafting what might be the most important speech in human history. "We need to show that humanity's adaptability and questioning nature are strengths the galaxy needs," Minji argued. "And we need to propose a new vision for the Council," Han added. "Not just criticize the old one," June nodded, making notes. "A vision based on cooperation rather than control, on diversity rather than conformity." Morning came, and with it, 4 Arvani guards who escorted them not to the Grand Chamber, but to a much larger room June hadn't seen before. The assembly hall was enormous, with seating for hundreds. It was nearly full, with representatives from all 7 council species as well as observers from the controlled worlds. At the center was a circular stage with the council members seated around its edge. In the middle was a single podium where June, Han, and Minji were directed to stand. Above them, large screens showed the proceedings to everyone in the hall. The High Counselor stood. "This unprecedented joint session will address the classification of Earth and the concerns raised about council procedures. The human representatives will present their final argument, after which the council will vote on Earth's status." June stepped forward. He looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of as many different beings as he could. Then he began to speak. "Members of the council, representatives of all species, I stand before you at a crossroads in galactic history. What began as a trial of humanity has become something much more, a moment of truth for the entire galactic community." June gestured to Han and Minji beside him. "We 3 humans came here prepared to defend our species. We expected to argue that despite our flaws, humans deserve a place in the galactic community. But what we discovered was that the real question isn't about humanity at all. It's about what kind of galaxy we all want to live in." He paused, looking directly at the High Counselor. "For thousands of years, the Council has maintained peace through control. Species deemed dangerous have been contained and managed. Innovation has been directed. Development has been supervised. And yes, wars have been prevented. But at what cost?" June turned to address the wider audience. "The cost has been stagnation. The cost has been the silencing of new ideas. The cost has been a galaxy where one vision, the Arvani vision, determines what all other species may become." Murmurs spread through the hall, but June continued, his voice growing stronger. Humans are not perfect. We have fought wars. We have damaged our planet. We have been cruel to each other and to other species. But we have also created beauty. We have healed. We have learned from our mistakes and grown beyond them. He activated a display showing Earth's greatest achievements: art, music, scientific discoveries, acts of heroism and compassion. This is also humanity. This is also who we are. The prosecutor has argued that humans are dangerous because we question, because we challenge, because we change rapidly. And yes, these traits can lead to conflict. But they also lead to growth, to innovation, to new possibilities. June looked around at the council members. I ask you, which is more dangerous? A galaxy where new ideas are seen as threats, or one where they are seen as opportunities? Which is more likely to survive the challenges of the future? A civilization that controls and contains, or one that adapts and evolves? Han stepped forward to stand beside June. As a military strategist, I understand the value of stability. But true stability doesn't come from suppressing change. It comes from harnessing it, from creating systems flexible enough to incorporate new ideas without breaking. Minji joined them. And true justice doesn't come from imposing one species' values on all others. It comes from creating fair processes where different perspectives can be heard and respected. June continued, we propose a new vision for the Council and the galaxy. Not a human vision, but a truly collaborative one. A galaxy where species learn from each other as equals, where diversity is seen as strength, not weakness, where control gives way to cooperation. He looked directly at the High Counselor again. The Arvani have led the Council for thousands of years. You have prevented wars and guided developing species. There is wisdom in what you've built. But there is also wisdom in knowing when a system must evolve. June gestured to the entire hall. Look around you. See the creativity, the innovation, the unique perspectives that each species brings. Imagine what the galaxy could achieve if all of this potential were fully unleashed, guided not by control but by shared values and genuine cooperation. He lowered his voice, making everyone lean in to listen. You asked whether humans are too dangerous to join galactic society. We ask whether the current galactic society is strong enough to incorporate new ideas without feeling threatened by them. June straightened, his voice clear and strong for his conclusion. Humanity stands ready to join the galactic community, not as a controlled species, but as a full partner. We bring our creativity, our adaptability, our questioning nature. We bring our art, our science, our capacity for growth, and yes, we bring our capacity for conflict, but also our ever stronger commitment to resolving conflicts peacefully. The choice before you today is not just about Earth, it's about the future of the galaxy itself. Will you choose a future of control and stagnation, or one of cooperation and growth? Will you choose fear, or will you choose hope? June bowed slightly. Thank you for hearing us. Whatever you decide, know that humanity will continue to strive to learn to grow. It is our nature. It is who we are. As June stepped back, the hall was completely silent. Then slowly, beings began to stand. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds, until almost everyone except the Arvani was on their feet. The sound of alien appendages striking surfaces, their version of applause, filled the massive room. The High Counselor waited for the noise to subside, four eyes blinking rapidly, and what June had learned was a sign of agitation. The Council will now vote on Earth's classification. As is traditional, we will begin with point of order, Key interrupted, standing from the tail-end section. Before we vote on Earth's classification, I move that we vote on reforming the classification system itself. The High Counselor's blue skin darkened. That is not the purpose of this session. Nevertheless, it is my right as a council member to propose a procedural vote, Kai said firmly. Lear stood next, crystal body catching the light. I second the motion. One by one, representatives from 4 other council species stood to support the motion. Only the Arvani remained seated. The High Counselor's voice was cold. You would undo thousands of years of peace and stability because of one primitive species? No, Kai replied. We would build a better system because it is time. The humans have simply helped us see what many of us have felt for centuries. The High Counselor looked around the chamber, seeing that they were outnumbered. 3 months after the historic joint session, June stood on the observation deck of the council station, watching as a new ship docked. This one was special. the first official Earth diplomatic vessel, built with a combination of human technology and design contributions from their new allies among the Council species. Nervous? Minji asked, joining him at the viewport. June smiled. A little. It's not every day you welcome the United Earth ambassador to replace yourself. The past 3 months had been incredibly busy. After the joint session, June, Han, and Minji had stayed on the station as Earth's interim representatives while the Reform Committee worked on restructuring the Council. Meanwhile, Earth governments had come together with unprecedented cooperation to form a United Earth Council, specifically for interstellar relations. Today, the newly appointed United Earth ambassador would arrive to take over the permanent position. June, Han, and Minji would return to Earth as heroes, but their work here was done. There they are, Han said, pointing as the airlock opened. A group of humans emerged, led by Ambassador Sun, a distinguished diplomat who had spent the last 30 years working for international cooperation on Earth. Behind her came scientists, cultural experts, and military liaison officers, Earth's first official delegation to the galactic community. June stepped forward to greet them. Ambassador Sun, welcome to the Council Station. It's an honor to meet you. Sun clasped his hand warmly. The honor is mine, June. What you three accomplished here is nothing short of miraculous. Earth owes you a debt we can never repay. We just did our job, June said modestly. You did far more than that, a melodious voice said behind them. Kai approached, silver skin gleaming. You changed the galaxy. They escorted the new Earth delegation through the station to their quarters, not in the visitors section where June had first been placed, but in the diplomatic wing, with the representatives of other independent worlds. Along the way, beings from various species greeted them, some with curiosity, others with enthusiasm, a few still with wariness, but none with the dismissive contempt June had experienced when he first arrived. Later that day, they gathered in a conference room for June to brief Ambassador Sun and her team on the current state of affairs. The Reform Committee has made significant progress, June explained, activating a display that showed the new council structure. The biggest change is the elimination of the hierarchical system. There will no longer be senior and junior members or protected species. All members will have equal voting rights. What about the Arvani? One of Sun's advisors asked. Have they accepted these changes? Han answered, his expression serious. Reluctantly. They tried to block the reforms at first, but when 5 of the 7 council species threatened to form a new alliance without them, they realized their choice was either to adapt or to become isolated. They're still powerful, Minji added. They have the most advanced technology and the largest fleet. But their absolute authority has been broken. June continued the briefing. The 6 species previously under Arvani protection are being granted independence in phases. 2 have already achieved full sovereignty. The others are on track to follow within 5 years. And Earth's status? Ambassador Sun asked. Earth is classified as an independent developing world with observer status, June said. You'll have access to all council meetings and information. You can participate in debates but won't have a vote until Earth reaches certain technological benchmarks, which we estimate will take about 15 years. Given our current rate of development, Minji added. That's actually remarkably fast. Under the old system, it would have been centuries. If ever. The briefing continued for hours as June, Han, and Minji shared everything they had learned about council politics, alien cultures, and interstellar relations. By the end, Ambassador Sun looked both overwhelmed and excited. You've given us an incredible foundation to build on, she said. I only hope we can live up to the example you've set. The next morning, June received a surprising message. The High Counselor requested a private meeting. Despite all that had happened, June had had very little direct interaction with the Arvani leader since the joint session. He advised caution. The Arvani are still adjusting to their reduced status. This could be an attempt to establish influence over Earth through you, or it could be a genuine attempt at reconciliation, June replied. Either way, I should go. The High Counselor's private office was far less grand than the council chambers, but still impressive, with strange artifacts from across the galaxy displayed on shelves. Ambassador June, the Arvani said as he entered. Thank you for coming. June bowed slightly. High Counselor, though I understand the title will be changing soon. Yes, I will be simply the Arvani representative once the reforms are implemented next month. The Arvani's four eyes studied June carefully. You have accomplished something remarkable, human. You have dismantled a system that stood for 50,000 years. That wasn't our original intention, June said. Perhaps not, but it was the result. The Arvani gestured to a seat and June sat down across from the powerful being. I wanted to speak with you before you return to Earth, to help you understand what you have done and what may come next. June listened carefully as the High Counselor spoke. For 50 millennia, the Arvani have maintained peace in this sector of the galaxy. Before our ascendance, there were wars that destroyed entire worlds. Species annihilated each other over resources, territory, ideology. We ended that through control, yes, but also through stability. Through stagnation, June countered gently. Perhaps, but peace has its price. The Arvani leaned forward. The new council you have helped create is more equal, more open. But it will also be more chaotic, more unpredictable. When conflicts arise, and they will, how will they be resolved without a central authority? It was a question June had asked himself many times. Through cooperation, through systems that respect the rights of all species while working toward common goals. A beautiful vision, the High Counselor said, but untested on a galactic scale. The Arvani tried cooperation before we turned to control. It failed. That was 50,000 years ago, June pointed out. Perhaps it's time to try again with the wisdom gained since then. The High Counselor was silent for a moment. You remind me of another species we encountered long ago. They too questioned everything, adapted quickly, created bold new solutions. We admired them, until they began to threaten the stability we had worked so hard to create. What happened to them? June asked. They were the first species we placed under protection. They fought against it as you did, but they lacked allies among the council. The Arvani's eyes fixed on June. Now they serve as administrators throughout our territories. Their analytical skills are valued but carefully directed. June understood the implied threat. And you think humans might share their fate if the new system fails? I think humans have shown themselves to be remarkably disruptive. That quality can lead to innovation or destruction. The High Counselor stood. I did not ask you here to threaten you, June. I asked you here to warn you. The galaxy is more complex and dangerous than you know. The stability you have helped dismantle protected more worlds than you realize. Then help us build something better, June said, standing as well. The Arvani have thousands of years of experience and wisdom. That doesn't need to be lost because the system of control is changing. The High Counselor seemed surprised by the response. You would still welcome Arvani participation? After all we did to contain your species? Of course. The new council needs all voices, including yours, especially yours. June met the Arvani's four eyes steadily. You tried to protect the galaxy through control. We want to protect it through cooperation, but we share the same ultimate goal. For the first time, June saw the High Counselor's expression soften. Perhaps there is wisdom in your approach, human. Time will tell. The Arvani extended a four-fingered hand. Safe journey back to Earth, June. I suspect we will meet again. The day of departure arrived. The new Earth delegation was fully installed in their quarters, and Ambassador Sun had already attended her first council meeting. It was time for June, Han, and Minji to return home. A small crowd gathered in the docking bay to see them off. Kai was there, along with Lear, Vren, and representatives from several other species. Even Day came, though they had decided to stay on the station to continue their xenoanthropological research. This isn't goodbye, Kai said. Earth is now part of the galactic community. Our paths will cross again. Lear chimed softly, crystal body sparkling. You have shown us that change need not be feared. This lesson was long overdue. Vren rustled his golden feathers. And you have shown us that questioning authority can lead to improvement, not just conflict. The Arvani needed this lesson most of all. Day hugged each of them. I'm staying to document what happens next. The anthropological significance is enormous. A complete restructuring of a 50,000-year-old political system. I'll send regular reports back to Earth. As they boarded their ship, June took one last look at the gathered aliens. Beings who had started as strangers and potential enemies and who were now allies and even friends. Whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would not face them alone.